future. Prevention in terms of vaccinations. And to discuss this with me, to understand just what this means for many children, and of course those who survive that into their later years, let's speak to Dr. Deborah Omido, who's a pediatric oncologist at the Kisii Referral Hospital. She's joining us live from Kisii County. Thank you, Dr. Deborah. Also with me here in studio is Millicent Kagonga. She's HPV vaccine ambassador and a cancer survivor herself. Thank you, Millicent. Sydney Chahonyo is a cancer survivor as well and is at the Hope for Cancer Kids. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin first with you, Dr. Deborah. You're out, dealing with these cases probably on a very regular basis. Could you speak to us about how many cases you're seeing, perhaps on a regular basis, and what some of the major challenges are when it comes to treatment of childhood cancers in Kenya?
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. We are seeing many cases of cancer on a daily basis in the hospital, and many of the challenges that we have are that sometimes the community members do not recognize the signs of cancer in children on time. The other challenge we have is that also health workers sometimes do not recognize the signs of cancer in time. The other challenge we have also is that some of the ways to diagnose cancer is expensive, and many of the parents of these children do not have any health insurance. So being able to get the right diagnostic tests done on time to be able to get an accurate diagnosis is usually a big challenge. Once we get the diagnosis, the treatment is also quite expensive and quite costly. And so sometimes these children, even when you have got the right diagnosis, getting them the right treatment is sometimes a challenge. And so that is what we have been going through, but we are determined to make things different. We are determined to make sure that children with cancer can get their diagnosis on time and can get their treatment on time. And we believe there's a lot of hope, and they can get their treatment even in the nearest hospitals, even in the county referral hospitals. We want to make it that children can get these services closer to their homes. All
right, you've talked about, challenges of late detection and also, the cost of treating childhood cancers. Daktari, do we know which types of cancers are more prevalent in Kenyan children? Which ones are you dealing with? Are you seeing more regularly, perhaps?
Yes, we are seeing quite a number of leukemias, both acute myeloid leukemias and also acute lymphoblastic leukemias. We are seeing quite a number of lymphomas, especially Burkitt's lymphoma, and also some Hodgkin's lymphomas as well. We have seen some nasopharyngeal carcinomas, which in the West is rare in children, but we are seeing it quite commonly even within our society. We have seen quite a bit of Kaposi sarcoma, some related to HIV, but also some that is not related to HIV. We have been seeing also kidney cancer, that is nephroblastoma or Wilms tumor, neuroblastomas also, that is the tumor of the adrenal glands as well. We've also seen bone cancers, like osteosarcoma. We've seen even synovial sarcomas. We are seeing all different types of cancers, even in the children in the county hospitals.
Interesting. We've heard the statistics and we've seen those numbers, but let's understand what this means, on a more personal level. Sydney, could you speak to us about your experience, as a survivor, and we'll get to what you are doing now, but could you talk to us about that experience that you went through?
Thank you, Yvonne. I was diagnosed with cancer of the postnasal space at the age of 19. That is right behind your nose, where your ear, nose, and throat meet. Luckily for me, it was diagnosed early. They said it had been in my body about 6 months, and for that type of cancer, it's early. I was also fortunate enough that my parents could afford the best treatment for me. I was treated in country at a private hospital, and my treatment cycle took about 1 year. I did about 4 months of radiotherapy and about 5 months of chemotherapy. It was rigorous. It completely broke my body down. I think I lost about 15 kgs in a period of about 2 weeks at one point because of the pressure due to the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy. But aside from that, from the get-go, I decided that I was going to beat it. I had a very good oncologist who was very positive, and from the beginning he told me that this is a common cancer in Kenya, but it can be beaten. We have caught it early. You have access to treatment, and let's do the best we can to beat this thing. And from the beginning, my mindset was positive, and I said, I'm going to beat it. I finished my treatment in November of 2004, and after that, you start kind of looking for ways to give back to the community, to help people who are going through what you went through. So I started volunteering at public hospitals, especially Kenyatta National Hospital, at the Children's Cancer Ward, just to get, give the kids a smile, just to be there with the kids, to play with the kids. It's a difficult thing they're going through. They're isolated from their friends and from their family and their support system. So I kind of tried to step in, and even though I was not family, I decided to do the best I could to help those children.
And how did you know? What were some of the symptoms and the signs, that you sort of witnessed in the beginning that then, you sought medical attention for?
The symptoms are very, I wouldn't say normal, but they are symptoms that carry across an array of different diseases. Initially, I just started having very mild headaches at the top right part of my head. Very mild headaches. You drink water, you sleep it off, you don't think too much about it. Then I started having flu symptoms, runny nose, sneezing, nothing that you would think, there's something bigger here. Aside from that, I started nose bleeding, but it was maybe once every month. But with time, the symptoms got more and more frequent. The thing that actually made me go to the hospital was that I started losing hearing in my right side. I already had one-sided hearing from childhood, and now my hearing in my right side was disappearing, and that's what, actually, that was the red flag for me.
Okay.
So I started looking for treatment. I got quite a number of misdiagnoses, and it took about 6 months for them to actually find that it was cancer, from being treated for different things, sinus problems, take these pills and you'll be okay within a week or two, and it took about 6 months for them to actually find out that it was cancer.
Okay.
Yes.
And we'll talk about, you've started to mention it a little bit, about some of the work that you now did and some of the challenges that you feel need to be addressed when treating and managing childhood cancers in the country. Millicent, tell us your story. Yours started with, in childhood as well. Could you give us your experience?
Okay, for me, thank you very much. For me, I started my journey at the age of 14. I got my firstborn, and then at the age of 20, I got my thirdborn. So 2010, it was the same way I started having the discharge, the abnormal discharge. But because of the community where I used to live, by then I wasn't able, I was not able to know what I'm going through or where do I start to get my treatment. I kept quiet until 2015, and then 2017 I did my treatment, and it was very difficult because I wasn't able financially, so I did my treatment at Kenyatta National Hospital. By the way, nowadays, the hospital is doing a good job for the children and also for the people who are going through cancer. Even the doctors, the nurses, and the navigation. Navigation is very important for anyone who is going through cancer, and the social services at Kenyatta National Hospital. By then, when I was doing the treatment, it was very difficult. Even I used to sleep at the corridors because of lack of the transport to go
back home and to the hospital every day.
The period of radiotherapy. So I told myself, I wouldn't want even my worst enemy to go through what I'm going through. If God is going to give me another chance, I'm going to change the community. That's where I started giving back to the community, helping other women, telling the women the important to go to the hospital, and telling even the encouraging the children to go to the hospital, and also to encourage the women also to make sure their children has done all the vaccine that the children needs, because most of the women from the slum, they don't have time for that.
Right, and that's why you are now an HPV vaccine ambassador, and we'll be speaking to Dr. Omido in just a moment about prevention, because the theme this year is Prevent Now for the Future. And you are now a champion for the HPV vaccine. So tell us why. I also understand your daughter was one of the first, if not the first, to get the vaccine when it became publicly available.
Yes, my daughter was the first one to be vaccinated, and I'm glad I was able to protect my daughter, because what I went through, I don't want my daughter to go through, or my daughter to come to me in the next 20 or 25 years asking me, Mom, you went through this, why did you help me or protect me from this sickness that you went through? So that's why I'm advocating for HPV vaccine, and I'm telling women out there, or any parent, any guardian out there, the HPV vaccine is safe. My daughter, she's very bright, and since she did the vaccine is almost 2 years, and she's very safe and very normal like another child. So it is very important, and for the government, it is very important for the government to empower the cancer survivors, because cancer survivors, they went through it. Most of cancer survivors, mostly from the slum, they don't have maybe papers to show where they reached at school, but they have knowledge to deliver the message to the patient or to the child. They can walk with a cancer patient the journey very well.
Indeed, you would be the perfect ambassador, having gone through that. We'll talk about Hope for Cancer Kids in a moment, but Dr. Deborah, let me bring you in, because we've talked about you know, vaccination, and now that we're talking about preventing this for the future, tell us the types of vaccines that are there for which cancers, and let's speak about you know, the vaccine and the importance and the role that that plays in prevention.
So the human papilloma virus is available in our government hospitals for children 10 years old, girls who are 10 years old, and it's going to soon expand as soon as there's more funding is available, even for the boys and for children who are even older than that. In the private sector, the vaccines are available, and now with NHIF, they can be received. I am a mother as well. My 2 daughters and my son have been vaccinated against human papilloma virus. This vaccine helps to prevent cancer of the cervix, cancer of the penis, and also some laryngeal cancers and esophageal cancers as well. Then we also have the hepatitis B vaccine, which is started in 2001, which is given to all children at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. We hope with more funding that it can also be given at birth, and this vaccine helps to prevent cancer of the liver, that is hepatocellular carcinoma. However, some cancers cannot be prevented through vaccines, and it's very important for us to be able to look out for signs and symptoms.
Indeed.
Cancer, yes.
Sorry, because you're about to talk about the most important thing that I think would like to sum up our conversation. We've talked about vaccines. We have 2 that are available, but indeed there are many other types of cancers that cannot be prevented by vaccination. And one of the key things, of course, is early detection. Dr. I will come back to you in a moment, just so you can give us the signs to look out for, and, you know, not necessarily that they're all linked to cancer, but, you know, just some of the signs to say this could be, and maybe to start seeking help earlier. Stay with me, Dr. because I'd like to bring you in, Sydney, and talk about what you're doing now with Hope for Cancer Kids. So tell us about what happens at Hope for Cancer Kids, what sort of help is provided, and in your view, what you see are some of the challenges of children and their parents as they go through treatment, management, and palliative care.
Thank you, Yvonne. At Hope for Cancer Kids, we support children who can't afford cancer treatment. Number one thing we do is we support them through our NHIF support program, whereby we onboard them on NHIF. We have been lucky enough to sign an MOU with NHIF so that they start treatment within a month's time, as opposed to the normal 3 months waiting period. Now, at the moment, we're supporting about 150 kids per month to get cancer treatment, because once we pay their NHIF, they're able to get comprehensive cancer treatment in public hospitals. And we work with community health workers who give us children from very low-income backgrounds who cannot even afford that 500 shillings a month for NHIF. Aside from that, we do psychosocial support. We have been having art therapy sessions every Thursday at Kenyatta National Hospital, and we plan to continue that once, you know, COVID-19 recedes. Aside from that, we also just navigate them through the system, explain to them this is what cancer is, this is what you're going to go through, because sometimes they come out of the doctor's office and they do not know what these terms mean. We have been lucky enough to partner with very good organizations and individual donors, such as Lions Club International, who have helped us raise funds to support 120 kids for the whole of this year. We are also partnering with organizations such as Kilele Health Association, which is a survivorship-based organization that empowers survivors. We are climbing Mount Kenya next week, actually, from 20th to 24th, to raise awareness about cancer in Kenya, and to send the message that cancer is beatable. We are living proof of that.
Absolutely.
Cancer is a very hard disease to deal with because, as you said, there are very many different types of cancers.
Yeah.
But it is beatable, and at the same time, there's more that needs to be done, even post-treatment. As a survivor, I have to wear a hearing aid. There are people who need prostheses or prosthetics. There are people who need to take medication for the rest of their lives. Some of the challenges we are facing, as much as we're getting a lot of support from the government and NHIF, I'll just give you some practical examples. Right now, we have 2 children, 1-year-old and a 6-year-old in Kisii Level 5 Hospital. And we started paying the NHIF this month, and they need treatment immediately. Unfortunately, they have to wait for that 1 month to lapse before NHIF kicks in. So we are trying to find ways to, find money to support these kids. Another example is we have some children at Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital who we sponsor, and unfortunately, they are being told that they need to pay for a whole year for NHIF to be able to get radiotherapy.
Wow.
And these are some of the challenges in the system, some of the hitches in the system. As much as we have made big strides, there's a lot more work to do.
There's a lot more that needs to be done. You'd also talked about, and I don't want us to lose that as well, the psychosocial sort of effects it has on children. And when I was speaking to you, Sydney, you mentioned the fact that things we don't think about. So children are spending a long time in hospital, away from their friends and family and not in school. Could you talk to us about, that experience from the work you do at Hope for Cancer Kids?
If you think about Ward 1E at Kenyatta National Hospital, the pediatric oncology ward, that's the ward where children spend the longest time. We were there giving care packages to them about 2 weeks ago with Lions Club and Kilele Health International. You find kids who have been there for a whole year, because their parents have to go back home. They have other kids at home. Yeah. They have to go back and make money to be able to support the family. So a lot of the time, these kids are alone. They don't have their friends, they don't have their siblings, they don't have anybody. So the only family they have is each other. And it's a difficult situation because every now and then we do lose a child. Yeah. And it is very sad. So one of the things that struck us when we were there 2 weeks ago, the kids were so happy because they said some of them had not had visitors since 2020. Oh. Because obviously, because of COVID protocols, they had to reduce, visitation because the kids have compromised immunities. Yeah. But at the same time, just seeing somebody there, knowing that someone cares about them, and also allowing them to be kids. We go in there and we make art with them and we play with them, and it's just giving them a chance to be a child again. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. Giving them a chance to be a child again. Dr. Amido, I want to finish with you because we're talking about preventing now for the future. We've talked about the vaccines that are available, 2 of them for hepatitis B and against HPV. But how do we reduce or rather increase the survival rate from 20% in Kenya to 80% and possibly more like we see in the developing world? You talk about early detection being one of those. Close our discussion now with some of those symptoms, something that in the medical world you call the index of suspicion. But just tell us, what as a parent should one be looking out for in their young children that, should be a red flag?
So cancer resembles many of the ordinary diseases. It resembles cold, it resembles malaria, it resembles many of the ordinary diseases that we have. But some of the red flags can be if the child appears pale, is feeling tired, is being told that their blood levels are low, if the child is nose bleeding, if the child is having a generalized bone pain, if the child is having a lump, especially on the neck or any other part of the body, which is swelling abnormally without having been hurt before, any unexplained weight loss, the child is losing weight or is having a very persistent fever despite treatment is not improving, or is having a persistent cough, is not able to breathe very well, or when you look at the eyes of the child, like when you take a photograph of the child and you find that instead of it being black, it's looking white, that can be a sign of some of the eye cancers that we have. Also, abdominal distension, when the abdomen can be swollen, or when you're bathing the child, you feel like there's something a little swollen, a little hard inside there. Those can be signs of some of the cancers, like of the kidney or even of the adrenal glands. Then headaches. Headaches can be a cause of cancer. Many of the brain tumors just begin as a headache. It can just be mild, like it was in the case of Sydney. And for others, it can be severe, associated with vomiting. If you find that it is persistent and you're getting treatment and it's not getting better, it is good to have a high index of suspicion that it could be a brain tumor or any other of the cancers that affect the head. Then also a swelling of the limbs, especially for our teenagers. Finding a swelling in the limb, especially near the knee, that can be a sign of bone cancer. So we just have to be more and more suspicious. So even as we are trying to rule out the other diseases like malaria, typhoid, common cold, pneumonia, let us always remember that cancer can also be one of the differential diagnoses.
All right, and indeed early detection is the key to better outcomes when it comes to treatment and obviously survival. Dr. Deborah Omido, who's a pediatric oncologist at the Kisii Referral Hospital, thank you very much for your time and for showing us some of the signs to look out for. Millicent, thank you very much for your story, and Sydney as well, and for the good work that you continue to do. Millicent is an HPV vaccine ambassador. Sydney is at Hope for Cancer Kids, and Millicent says the vaccine is available, it is safe, and she's happy that her daughter is safely vaccinated. Thank you all for making the time for us here on the program tonight. Now you know the signs to look out for this Childhood Cancer Awareness Month of September. You're watching Citizen Weekend. We're taking a break. We're back with the day's sports news.
Trying to go with him, and on the near side, Omanyala. Omanyala trying to dress, but he's come back to him. Just misses out there by a few inches.